I know there's multiple different stories, but the one I like to stick with is there was an Indian woman and her baby, and there was like a group of settlers that came through the area, and they got in a fight with like the Indian tribe, and Thearosa had got her baby thrown off the bridge and into the creek, and she never found the baby. So over time, there was many years of her crying, weeping, screaming, and walking up and down the creek.
I only got told one story of Theorosa's Bridge growing up. It was way later in life that I discovered there was three stories. The ghost that people misinterpret as Theorosa was actually the mother's ghost because she was grief-stricken and threw herself from the bridge and drowned. So when you go back there and you say, Theorosa, I have your baby, you're not necessarily calling to Theorosa, you're calling to Theorosa's mother, and she's the one that comes. In most stories that I've heard for Theorosa, two of them, as far as I know, Theorosa's a young child. And one of them, she's grown up, but is drowned for having an illegitimate child with a nearby settler. So those stories were the ones that I heard about later.
The facts regarding the bridge would be, I guess it's been burned down multiple times over the years and rebuilt and burned down again and rebuilt. And now it's a concrete bridge, but just to the south of where it's located, there is still a couple pieces of the trellis from the bridge and things like that. There was a few things that were, I guess you could say, unexplainable. There was one time we got spooked out and tried to go back to the car and the car wouldn't start. And then we got out of the vehicle, walked around for a little bit, came back and the car started just fine. Like weird lights, apparitions, stuff like that. And then there was one night I was out there and I heard screams from off in the distance, but I didn't go far enough to see what was going on because it was kind of creepy, and it was like 12 o'clock at night and screaming from the woods. I didn't want to look into it any farther.
So anytime that I've ever been out there, it's usually kids, while we're usually there, they're just screaming, for that Thearosa. They want her to show up. They want to see any sort of proof of this. As most people probably do. You go through your entire life trying to see if there's anything on the other side, but I don't know, man. I think I'm kind of glad that I haven't experienced that yet, because I really don't know what I would do if it happened to me. I think you really just need to go out there for yourself and try to catch it. There's times of the day where it's called the witching hour. It's late at night, probably at the peak of when you're going to spook yourself out completely. But in order to prove something like that, I really think you ought to just do it yourself. So you're exposed, your fear is exposed, and if something feeds off of that, it's probably going to try. And that would be not necessarily a way of capturing it for proof for the internet or for video or anything like that, but at least you'd know.
Folk tales a lot of times could be contorted from one generation to the next and passed on falsely and mixed up and put this way and put that way, and then everybody's like, oh, this is what actually happened, but it's in fact not what happened. Some people, yeah, you could be in your own mind like, oh, did you just see that? And then everybody around you is like, yeah, I did, but nobody in fact seen anything.
I've completely believed that at some point something like this did happen, and it wouldn't have been uncommon for anything to happen in or around a bridge. A bridge was a pretty common tool, just like trees were at one point, for, I guess, hanging somebody or throwing them over the bridge and letting them drown or something like that. So a lot, yeah, I can say that I do believe a lot of what's going on at that point. But since this was quite possibly a tribe that we're talking about, not a lot of documentation went into keeping this information as it does now.
I'm sure our kids and stuff will be asking, hey, what's haunted around this area? What can we go explore? And then our generation will be like, oh, there's this place and this place. And then they'll pass it on to their kids, and just like it was passed on to us from our parents and things like that.
I think so. There's no reason why it wouldn't. Everybody that lives in and around Valley Center will always hear about it. So as long as somebody always hears about it, word will spread no matter what, especially among schools. You know, that was a big deal for us when we were younger and we were in school. We wanted to go check out stuff like this, and it still does. There's still, you know, if you go out there at any given time, you could bump into people out there. So yeah, I don't think that that's a story that's going to die anytime soon.